the lock around the clock for week 7. Yes, week 7 already. Isn't that amazing? We are 2-1 here at Geno Productions. 2-1 last week, 74% on the year ATS. That's against the spread. You know it. I know it. You've lived it. We've learned it. We loved it. And your bookie hates you for it. And we love that because we like to make money. And if you're watching this video right now, there's probably a good reason you're watching it. You're not 74% until now. You're watching this and you're going to increase those. It's great. It's going to work out well for you. Don't get me wrong. 3 locks for you today for this weekend coming up. But before I do that, I need to get something off my chest, okay? Number one, all you doubters about Carson Palmer, who was just traded to the Raiders, don't hate on Palmer, okay? I heard it from Al Davis up above. I'm sure he influenced this pick. He probably said, I always picture that Palmer kid in a Raider uniform. Raiders are silver and black, and that kid was meant to wear it. We're going to put a commitment to excellence, and this Palmer kid, is going to take us all the way to the championship. I can see it now. It's all probably happening up in the skies, transported down here, and brought Carson Palmer back to the left coast. Now, one more thing I wanted to get off my chest, late-breaking NBA news. You guys NBA fans? Because this is the biggest thing to come out of the lockout so far. Here it is. Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries are breaking up after a month and a half of marriage. Boy, who didn't see that coming, right? It's kind of like not noticing Halloween in about 2 weeks. All right, now on to the lock around the clock. Let's start off with the 1 o'clock lock this week, which is my GOY game of the year. Yes! This is my absolute lock, must-have lock. Bet it and forget it. This is Seattle at Cleveland getting 3 this week. Cleveland's pretty beat up. Joel Hayden, their defensive back, probably one of their best defensive players at this point, is not playing the game. Peyton Hillis has just been staggered with the Madden curse. Let's face it. It's the Madden curse kicking in again. Peyton Hillis won't be playing that much. He probably won't get that many touches. This offense with Colt McCoy really isn't moving the way people thought it would be. And again, it is Cleveland all over again. Seattle, not that they're lighting the skies up on fire, but hey, Seattle is pretty good. They're not bad. They have better players at this point than Cleveland does. And whether it's Charlie Whitehurst or Tavares Jackson, look for the same thing that happened on offense. Sputtering, but not bad. Because guess what? Marshawn Lynch had a breakout week last week. And they will do well with Marshawn Lynch against Cleveland with the run. Marshawn Lynch exploded for a season best last week, and I look for that to continue here in Cleveland as I see their coach and their way they're going to play is going to be much better. They match up very well against Cleveland. Cleveland's probably in the luck sweepstakes right now with Miami and some of those other teams. But my lock of the week, please, just bet it and forget it. Seattle, 1 o'clock lock, game of the year, +3. Take it to the bank. Now, going to the 4 o'clock lock. My Oakland Raiders at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. There will be no chopping here in the black hole. And that's right, because Carson Palmer is going to start this week. And guess what? Carson Palmer, for those of you that are bashing him and thinking in doubt that this is going to turn out into something, and oh, well, the Raiders gave up more draft picks. Well, the Raiders never really did well with first-round draft picks, a la Jamarcus Russell. And Gallery, I mean, look where he is out in Seattle where people just go to die. But McFadden, okay. Rolando McClain, Huff coming around, playing well. Some of those guys took a little bit of time to pan out, and now they are. Darius Hayward-Bay, never thought I'd put those 3 words together in a positive note, but guess what? He's even playing well. Now, if we look at Palmer and we look at back at 2005, 2006 when they swept the Steelers, won the division, and went to the playoffs, and got taken out by the Steelers in that very first time they played them because the Steelers cheap-shotted Carson Palmer, took him out at the knees, and he still completed a 60-yard bomb downfield, which was probably their best play of the game. Carson Palmer is going to bounce back. He's in a much happier mood. He's in a much better situation. He's back on the left coast. And guess what? He didn't want to play for that shithole in Cincinnati. He didn't want to play for Mike Brown, who's probably one of the worst owners in the league. I mean, what, 2 years ago they were fighting a massive rampant staph infection because their locker room and their facility is just, please, I mean, come on. He wanted to be out of there so friggin' bad, he'll do anything to turn this loose. I know it. I know when he goes over to the Raiders, and I know the Raiders isn't exactly Disney World, but guess what? When he goes there, he's going to be much happier and out to prove something, and that he will. And who cares? The Raiders in Cincinnati, even if they get those #1 picks, they're going to screw them up anyway. Who cares? But if you look back Last year, as recently, because that's what you have to look back. I mean, he's retired at 31. Come on, he's got a lot of years left. Last year with Simpson, Gresham, Terrell Owens, and Ocho Stinko on the bench and injured reserve. He had Gresham, Jeremy Gresham, and Simpson in there, and a couple other receivers that he played very well with showing strikes. That offense started to move all of a sudden. Isn't that a little weird? You know why? Because they weren't counting their gold teeth. They weren't making videos. They weren't tweeting every 5 seconds in between catches, which they made drops anyway. They weren't worried about making reality shows and being rap stars and things like that and having video games. Guess what? That's the way the Raiders are. The Raider receivers are very good, very underrated, and guess what? They're not any of those things I just mentioned. So Carson Palmer will have a field day against the Chiefs. And don't forget, what did we do against the Chiefs last year? The Raiders ran roughshod on them with Run DMC and Michael Bush. Now, going into the playoffs last year, if you remember, Kansas City got slammed by the Raiders. Michael Bush ran up over 200 yards. Well, guess what? Carson Palmer is going to do a lot of this. Handoffs, right. And when he hands off, guess what's going to happen? It's going to set up the what? Bomb. Don't tell me that Denarius Moore is not going to get downfield on those Chiefs and light them up, because it's going to happen, and it's going to get all set up by the run. We're not going to have to do too much more. Matt Castle will spend a lot of time on his back because the Raider defense is that good. And even without Asamoah, the Raiders defensive line, the linebacking core, we're going to stuff them. We're going to shut them down. We held Arian Foster, one of the best running backs in the league, and then granted he had some problems. He was a little injured, but we held him under 75 yards and some other very good backs in this league. What makes you think we're not going to stop Jamal Charles? Oh, Jamal Charles, he's not there. He's their best weapon. Dwayne Bowe might get open. He might have a pretty decent game, but that's going to be all they have. Now, with Todd Haley running the show, I mean, he couldn't coach his way out of a wet paper bag. He will have more seizures than rapper Rick Ross this weekend trying to defend the Raiders' offense, believe it or not, when they go storming through. Look for the Raiders to cover the 4.5 against the Chiefs at home in the black hole. Take it to the bank. Now, 8 o'clock lock. Very interesting game. Indianapolis at New Orleans, laying the 14. Yes, New Orleans is laying the 14, and I know you're like, yeah, Geno, just lay the wood. We all know New Orleans is going to smoke them. Wrong. Guess what? Curtis Painter, I know he threw all 5 touchdowns to Pierre Garçon. First quarterback to do that, throw his first 5 touchdowns to the same receiver. A little trivia for you. But guess what? Indianapolis Colts have covered every time this year, 2 times, that they were given a double-digit point spread. Now, in this game, they're getting 14 points, and Indianapolis has learned something in the last 6 weeks. They have learned that Curtis Painter, given the time, given the tutelage from Peyton Manning and the receiving core that he has, can do something with it. He's a very big guy. Reminds me a little bit of Detroit Lions quarterback, Matt Stafford, the way he moves in the pocket. Very strong arm. Also, Donald Brown. Look for Don Brown to get some yardage in this game. Also, Delone Carter. Look for him to get some yardage in this game. The New Orleans Saints haven't been that well against the run. Haven't been that good against the pass either. This isn't a dome. It's on a fast track. It's where the Indianapolis Colts play well. And don't forget, they still have a very good offensive line, or good enough to get it done, and a very good defense. Look for this to be a tight game. Look for it to be a high-scoring game. But look for the Colts to cover that 14 points on Sunday night. Even though Sean Payton is going to be handicapped with a broken leg, that might factor into it as well. Coaching from the bench is kind of tough. But anyway, look for the Colts to cover that 14 points. That's my lock around the clock for Week 7. Take it to the book, take it to the bank, and as always, you take it easy.